What if Earth didn't orbit the Sun but Jupiter instead? Sounds absurd at first, replacing our warm, life-sustaining star with a swirling gas giant 11 times Earth's diameter. But let's say, somehow, we managed it. The Sun is no longer our gravitational anchor. Now it's Jupiter. Big, cold, magnetic Jupiter, the one with 95 moons, a giant storm the size of Earth, and more mass than everything else in the solar system combined except the Sun. The first question is, how would this even work? Let's assume Earth takes the place of one of Jupiter's outer moons, something like Callisto. That's nearly 2 million kilometers away from Jupiter, which is far enough to avoid being torn apart by tidal forces, but close enough to stay in orbit. In this new position, Earth would circle Jupiter roughly every 17 Earth days. That means we'd go from having 1 year every 365 days to 21 years in a single Earth year. Great for birthdays, terrible for accounting. But that raises a much bigger issue. Right now, Earth sits about 150 million kilometers from the Sun, squarely in the so-called habitable zone. Not too hot, not too cold, and just right for liquid water. Jupiter, however, is way out at 778 million kilometers. That's over 5 times farther, which means the Sun would appear 25 times smaller in the sky, and we'd only receive about 4% of the sunlight we're used to. That's bad, really bad. The Earth would rapidly freeze, temperatures would plunge, oceans would turn to ice, and photosynthesis would grind to a halt. Without intervention, life on the surface would collapse. The entire planet would be locked in a permanent ice age, and not the cute, animated kind. So unless we want to live underground or underwater like sci-fi moles, we'd need artificial heating, giant orbital mirrors, global-scale fusion reactors, or space-based solar arrays beaming energy down to Earth. In other words, we'd have to turn Earth into a massive space station just to stay alive. Or there's another option, make Jupiter a star. After all, it's made of hydrogen and helium, just like the Sun. But here's the catch. It's not nearly massive enough. You'd need to add about 79 more Jupiters to get a red dwarf star. Then it could ignite nuclear fusion and provide heat to nearby worlds. If that happened, and Earth orbited at the right distance, we might get a second chance at habitability. A bit dimmer, a bit cooler, but warm enough to support life again. That said, finding 79 spare Jupiters is not exactly practical. But let's assume we keep things realistic. Jupiter remains a giant, cold gas ball. Now we run into another huge issue, its magnetic field. Jupiter has the most powerful magnetosphere in the solar system, about 20,000 times stronger than Earth's. That might sound like good news. More shielding, right? Not exactly. Jupiter's magnetic field traps radiation like a giant particle blender. The region around its inner moons is a radioactive death zone. Even at Callisto's distance, we'd get blasted with far more radiation than Earth is built to handle. Our magnetosphere would offer some protection, but satellites would fry, electronics would glitch, and surface life would need extreme shielding. And then there's the gravitational drama. Orbiting the Sun, Earth is the main character. One moon, modest tides, pretty chill. But around Jupiter, we'd be just one moon among many. Europa, Io, Ganymede, Callisto, all dancing around us. Jupiter's pull would stretch and flex Earth's crust, and depending on our orbital distance and eccentricity, we could experience massive tidal forces. Earthquakes might become more frequent, volcanoes could flare up, ocean tides could surge and retreat with terrifying force, transforming coastlines into disaster zones. But despite all this, the view would be incredible. Jupiter would dominate the night sky, a massive swirling planet hanging overhead, 20 times larger than the full moon. You'd see its banded clouds, its iconic great red spot, maybe even shadows from its other moons crossing its surface. Every night would be a front row seat to a planetary light show. So yes, Earth could technically orbit Jupiter. It would be cold, dark, and bathed in radiation. Life would be hard, probably impossible without advanced technology. But in some wild, alternate universe where we build fusion reactors, shield our world from magnetic chaos, and cozy up to the most massive planet in our solar system. Earth might survive, and if nothing else, it would be the most scenic moon in the sky. Because in that universe, we wouldn't just look at Jupiter from afar, we'd call it home.